Main reading today for the sermon is Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength, an ever present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though it roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. A river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her, she will not fail. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. He says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. I've only ever experienced one significant earthquake in my entire life. I was in Western Costa Rica at the time with several college students, and most of them had traveled to that region and crossed to the other side of the bay on an earlier ferry. But my friend and I were too late and had to spend the night in a town called Punta Arenas. We grabbed lodging in a motel, and we were generous to call it that. And I tried to cool off enough to get to sleep, but the mosquitoes kept me awake. They were so loud, the buzzing almost drowned out the laughter in the courtyard around the fire. How anybody was around a fire in that heat, I never could understand. The mosquitoes almost drowned out the traffic of buses and cars going back and forth on the main drag that was between us and the water. They almost drowned out the dogs that were barking around us. I was just about to drift off finally when the bed started to move side to side, like someone was rocking it, and the floor underneath it, and the motel over it. It took me a minute, it felt like a minute anyway, to realize what was happening. And when I realized this is what an earthquake feels like, I pulled the covers over my head. Clearly, I was ill prepared for the reality of earthquakes. My friend and I, though, we grasped what was going on fairly quickly, and we got up looking for something to crawl under. The beds didn't look very promising, and I didn't want to look under there and see what kind of giant cockroaches were there anyway. So we ended up getting under the door frame, unsure whether to run outside or stay inside. We were just kind of frozen in place. I bring this up today because I noticed something as I stood in that doorway that day. You think an earthquake is going to feel, like it looks in the movie. It's going to tremble, it's going to shake you. But what it does is something very different. What it actually feels like is that the earth underneath your feet is no longer solid ground. It feels like you're standing on a float in the middle of the ocean. It feels like waves of the ground are raising and lowering, undulating beneath your feet. For months after that earthquake, I can tell you this, the earth did not feel solid to me no matter where I stood. Elevators and just feeling them go up and down, that creeped me out. I could feel a truck passing. If I was standing here and the truck was all the way up past the school, I could feel it going. It was amazing how in tuned you get to the earth after you go through something like that. Anybody else ever been through an earthquake like that? Yeah, okay, some of you. All right. I don't know that, I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I've ever, again, trusted the ground to be solid under my feet since that day. A lot of us, even those who didn't raise their hands, know what it's like to have solid ground not be so solid anymore. I'm not talking about physically feeling that way. I'm talking about spiritually, emotionally. We have all been shaken to the core before, and we know what it's like to feel like the ground isn't solid beneath our feet and we need a safe place to stand. When that happens, who do you look for? What do you look for when the world seems to be falling apart around you? Where do you find that sense of safety? I love that old song by Ben E. King. When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. Most of us can probably tell you every word of that song, but some of you want to go ahead and start going doom, 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 doom. It's one of those songs that has survived generations because it names something absolutely universal. King isn't singing about avoiding trouble. The night still comes, the land still grows dark. With every word, every note, he sings this. If someone strong enough will just stand by me, I can face this. That is one of the deepest longings of the human heart. We all want someone who, when life gets hard, they won't leave, someone who won't panic, someone who won't abandon us, someone steady enough that we can borrow their strength when the world is crumbling around us. That longing explains why this song still resonates 60 years. That's hard to believe, 60 years later. In truth, this longing, though, is for something that this world really can't provide and no one in it can truly supply. And that leads us to our readings for today from Mark 4 and Psalm 46. There are times when everything that can go wrong goes wrong. The worst we can imagine comes to pass. We get a sense of this in that gospel story Mark shared about the disciples, including several lifelong fishermen who knew what they were getting into, and they were 100% sure they were about to die. The wind and the waves were simply too much for the boat that they were in. It was not built for that. They know how this story is about to end. At least they think they do. There is no safe place on this sea that is tossing them. They need refuge. They don't see it. And then there's Jesus, standing there saying, peace or quiet, be still. I wonder, was Jesus echoing this psalm? Centuries before he calmed the wind and the waves with his voice, this song was written. And in it, God says, be still. The psalm foreshadows what the disciples saw firsthand, that God doesn't just stand by us. He does something more. He stands for us. He stands with us, over us, through it all. Whatever comes to pass, whatever the storm, even if the earth itself is no longer solid ground, he still holds you. And man, do we need to take this to heart. We are really bad at believing that the world can fall apart around us without taking us down. If we're honest, we worry and work ourselves to death trying to create our own little contingency plans so we can take care of ourselves. And our culture feeds this. I mean, are we not bombarded with what ifs? I mean, open up on your computer, your news feed. What if the market crashes? What if the ice caps melt? What if your retirement funds disappear? What if another war begins? What if artificial intelligence ruins everything? What if that next huge storm hits? What if the power goes out for days on end? What if it never comes back on? What if your marriage fails? What if your health changes overnight? Have you ever noticed that we are constantly being fed the worst case scenarios, no matter where we look, pelted with them in our news feeds, on social media? And this is no accident because catastrophe sells. Fear sells. Outrage sells. Urgency sells. Every day we're told, you should probably worry about this. And after we're worried, you know what's going to happen next. Sell us the solution to whatever it is, right? Insurance, security systems, investment strategies, activist movements that we can join, emergency foods we can pile up in our emergency basement bunkers, supplements that will prevent, supplements that will cure. What you really need is to try this thing that all these other happy people tried. See, they're not stressing about it, they're all prepared. Now, I want you to hear me. I am not saying that these things are necessarily wrong. Wisdom and preparation are great. The Bible actually commends both. Joseph stored grain, Noah built an ark, the Proverbs praise the ant for preparing ahead. Being wise enough to see what might be coming isn't the problem. Preparation for possible calamity isn't the problem. The problem comes when preparation itself quietly becomes our refuge, the place where we get our sense of security. The problem comes when we begin trusting what we've done, what we've learned, what we've built, more than the God who holds us, the God who is, when it comes right down to it, the only refuge we can trust. As strong as we are, as hard as we try, we cannot build a proper refuge with our strength. It is the equivalent of building a blanket fort and pillows. I want to talk about refuge because that is a key theme, especially of the first two books of the Psalms. If you look at the 150 Psalms, you'll see that they're separated into different books. And refuge is a huge theme of especially the first part. And it's a key word in this psalm. Refuge is what I want for us. Refuge is what God wants for us. So now I have to ask you, what do you picture when I say the word refuge? And just think about it a minute. Refuge is more than a shelter, isn't it? It's more than a peaceful retreat. I picture those like dug in bunker tornado shelters out in the West, or maybe those fully stocked bunkers you see in the movies. I want one with a TV and air conditioning and all that. It's not just a safe place. A refuge is the only safe place when the world goes sideways. I said this was a song for the storm. I should have put the in all caps. We're talking about the storm. We are talking about the refuge now. Psalm 46 begins with this bold claim: God is our refuge and strength. And it takes a little bit of digging into these next couple of verses to know what the psalmist meant by this. He's not just talking about refuge on bad days or during tough times. Here's what I need you to hear, and I really don't want you to miss this. In verses 2 and 3, the psalmist says, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. In ancient Near Eastern understanding of the universe, the mountains for them had two jobs. One, they served as the anchors that held the dry land in place in the midst of watery chaos. That was one job. The other job was this: to hold up. They were pillars that held up the sky. In other words, the very worst thing that these people can imagine happening is this: that the mountains would shake or tremble. Because the waters above them in the sky and the waters below them beneath the ground that they walked on, they would all be unleashed at that point, and waters for them were chaos. Chaos itself would be unleashed. What we are reading in these two verses is their picture of the absolute worst case scenario. And before that, above that, there's this bold claim: God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. And then, therefore, we will not fear, even if the worst comes to pass. What if we started every day, not just the bad days, not just the days that we're facing the storm? What if we started our day with that proclamation? What if we actually meant it? God is our refuge. He can be. He should be. He wants to be. But is he, though? Is he really? Here's how you know the answer. When your world is rocked, is your first move to get to work or to get to praying? Your first move. Is your first inclination to take control or to throw up your hands and say, I don't control this? I do not like this question. Y'all probably know me well enough to know I have a little tiny bit of a control freak in me. Who or what do you go to first? That's your refuge. And we all have one. Some people run to money. Some people run to relationships, some to professional success. Some people run to politics or movements that they think will solve the world's problems. Some people run to distraction, streaming, scrolling, busyness, entertainment. Won't solve anything, but it sure will kill the time and help us cope. Some people run to information, and I got to say, this day and age, I think information, I think we fall prey to this one. Information is such a modern refuge, isn't it? We have so much of it. It's so accessible to every single one of us. Why would we seek out God? Or even a living, breathing expert on what we're facing, our problems, when we have search engines, we have podcasts, we have YouTube University, we have AI. Of all the false gods out there, of all the false refuges out there, information might be the most tempting. Because we think if I just know enough, if I read enough, if I stay informed enough, I'll be safe. But we know it even if we don't admit it sometimes. The power we gain by being informed has its limits. Knowing every headline doesn't mean we control any of them, does it? So learning is good, wisdom is biblical, but information makes a terrible savior. And here we are in a pattern. We spend our lives trying to figure out what the next worst case scenario might be, trying to prepare mentally, physically, spiritually for whatever life is going to throw at us, trying to build a refuge for ourselves just in case. But what do we really want? What we really want is for none of that stuff to happen. What we really want is to save the money, buy that big Costco crate of food and own the generators and live in peace and never need that stuff. I hate to say it, but I think a lot of us hope we'll never have to take refuge in God. We want Him to be that well-stocked storm bunker we invested in, building that relationship with Him ages ago, and then we maybe stopped thinking about it because we never really had to go there. We want the nice, easy relationship with God for the nice, easy days. We want to live thankful for the blessings. We want to rest sheltered in His wings. We want green pastures and still waters. We don't want to see a day when God is the only thing standing between us and chaos. If you've been there with only God standing between you and chaos, you wouldn't wish that on anybody, would you? If you haven't been there yet, I hate to say it, quite possibly will be at some point. And when and if that day comes, I want you to have this psalm, Psalm 46, on your playlist. When I've read Psalm 46 in the past, I have loved the bits about being still and knowing God is God. That's our verse, right? That's the one we love from this psalm. I have read this as a call to rest and peace. I have missed, and I'll admit it, I have missed the deeper meaning and the stronger message of this psalm until I studied to preach it for you now. I have missed how powerful this psalm can be, and I want you to have this. This is not a song for busy people or stressed out people or doubtful people or even people going through manageable trials and passing storms. This is a song for people who are out of options, people whose world has crashed around them. The promise and the hope we have in this psalm is so much more powerful than maybe a lot of us have imagined. And the call to action, because it's there, the call to action of this psalm is something I never fully understood. Psalm 46 doesn't promise a peaceful life. In fact, like Ben E. King, the psalmist is saying the worst might happen. He says, the earth gives way, the mountains fall into the sea, the waters roar, the kingdoms collapse. In other words, imagine everything you thought was permanent in your world suddenly isn't anymore. What then? And then the psalmist says, even if creation itself unravels, God remains. He never says there's nothing to fear. What he says is, therefore, even in the midst of all of that, I still won't be afraid. Why? Not because circumstances changed, because no matter the circumstances, we know that God doesn't. And that is a completely different foundation, a completely different kind of refuge. Why should we trust him? Why run to him instead of all of our other options? Not because he promises an easy life, and he doesn't. Not because Christians avoid suffering. The psalm never pretends that. The refuge is not that God removes every storm. The refuge is that no storm can remove your God. Think about Mark's gospel. Jesus doesn't keep his disciples from entering the storm. He's in it with them. They're all getting wet. His presence doesn't prevent the waves. His presence reframes their power and reveals their limits. Throughout the verses of Psalm 46, I want you to notice as you look through that psalm, I want you to notice who is acting in that psalm. God is. God helps. He speaks. He protects. He makes wars cease. He breaks bows. He shatters spears. He burns the shields. Nobody needs them anymore because he's ended all the wars. The psalmist sings of a God who has the final word over the chaos of history. The nations only look powerful. God speaks. They're not. The mountains look so strong and so permanent. God is more permanent. The oceans look chaotic, overwhelming, and unstoppable. God is stronger. Our confidence is not in our strength, our wisdom, or our favorable odds. It is in God who is above it all, God's character. After the psalmist sings of all that God will do, all the actions that God will take, we come to this verse 10, the verse that we might know by heart. Be still and know that I am God. We sing of God in action. We sing of God's command over us now to be still. And maybe we hear this, maybe you hear it, as a command to sit down, be quiet, do nothing. That sounds easy, doesn't it? Passive. But that's not really what the verse says, and hearing it right might just change the way you hear this entire song that is sung around it. The Hebrew verb here is harpu. It's translated as be still, but it can be translated as stop, let go, release your grip, drop your weapons. My Jewish study Bible translates it simply as desist. For anyone who is geared up to fight when the world is falling apart around you, for any of us who are trying to take action to keep it all together, we know that there is absolutely nothing easy or passive about stopping and letting go, releasing our grip, dropping our weapons. Imagine soldiers gearing up to go into battle, and God says, enough, lay them down. The image of being still isn't of someone relaxing in a nice hammock or sitting cross-legged on the beach watching the waves roll in. It's someone finally unclenching their fists in the middle of a fight. How many of us spend our lives with clenched fists, spiritually white-knuckling everything, trying to outthink every problem, outwork every crisis, outsave every uncertainty, outplan every possibility, hoping our effort can make us untouchable. And God says, be still. Stop. Just stop. Not because effort is bad, but because control was never yours in the first place. And you're wasting precious time and energy. My Jewish study Bible translates be still as desist, and here's how the rest of that verse reads for us, translated into English. Desist, realize that I am God. And I hear in that a bit of a warning and an invitation. You are not God, and that is such good news. There is no other God that will help you. Look to me. Stand by me. Which brings me back to that beautiful golden oldie Ben King saying, stand by me. He was so right. We get to choose. We're so blessed. We get to choose who we stand beside, who we stand with. And when we choose well and they allow us to stand with them, even when the sky falls and the mountains crumble to the sea, we won't be afraid. We all need someone to stand by us, someone to stand beside. By the grace of God in Him, we have that and so much more. We don't just have someone standing in the storm with us. The Lord Almighty is with us. And not just with us, the one standing beside us is also standing over every storm. In the middle of the sea, when the disciples given up hope, Jesus spoke to the wind and the waves. And the wind and the waves and their fears and their souls grew still. I wonder if they realized the one standing beside them in the boat was the very one who stands over the wind. I wonder how long it took them to realize that this is the one who stands over the wind itself. The one who says, peace, be still, is the same one they're thinking about, since they all learned Psalm 46 as the one standing beside them stood over the storm. Beside you stands over your storm, whatever that storm looks like. God stands over nations, over creation, over death, over every diagnosis, every election, every whatever we face, we do not face it alone. We don't face it with one who is buffeted by the waves and the wind. We face it with the one who speaks peace and stillness over all of it, even us. Because of this, when the earth gives way, we don't have to. We don't have to white knuckle this. We don't have to gear up for a fight all the time. We don't have to build a refuge like a survivalist who just got dumped in the middle of the wilderness. God has not lost his grip. God still reigns. So we can stop, desist, let go. Back to our love for that little verse, be still and know that I am God. I know it's a beautiful verse, but I wonder if we've accidentally made the bridge of this song, into the chorus. We think this whole psalm revolves around be still and know that I am God. The line God intended his people to hear as the chorus wasn't be still. It was the Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Be still because the Lord Almighty is with us. Lay down your weapons because the God of Jacob is our fortress. That's the refrain. God is our refuge. God is our refuge. God is our refuge. He is strong. He is standing with you, and he is standing for you. The command to be still is just an arrow pointing to the main message, a grace note in a beautiful melody. But we plug it out, make it the main message, put it on bumper stickers, and the song loses a little bit of meaning for us and some of its power over us. When our world is falling apart, the last thing I'm in the I don't want to hear somebody tell me be still when the world is falling apart. Because you know what it feels like they're saying? Give up. It also feels kind of impossible. I'm anxious. Well, be still. I'm overwhelmed. Just trust God. When well-meaning Christians say these words to us, it doesn't always go well, and it doesn't always bring out the best in us. But if we hear it the way the writer intended it, wanted us to hear it, if the refrain comes first, everything changes. Because God is with us, we can let go. Because God is our fortress, we don't have to defend ourselves. Because God reigns, we don't have to control everything. Faith is not pretending the storm isn't real. Faith is remembering the storm isn't ultimate. Being still isn't an impossible assignment. It is a gracious invitation. So, when the earth quakes, resist the temptation to do the spiritual equivalent of pulling the covers over your head. Stand by the God who stands by you, who stands with you, who stands for you, who stands over you. and trust that because He stands over everything, you can stand through anything. Thanks be to God. Amen.